Everyone, so today is a very exciting episode for me. I get to host the physician who has had the single greatest impact on my life. So I'm welcoming my dad to the show. We have been talking about this episode for a long time. I promised my dad that once he turns 70, which he just did this December, that he would be coming onto the show for an interview. And I know I just mentioned his age, but I want to say that my dad is much younger in body and spirit than 70 years old. We're going to be touching on all these things. But regardless of your age, your career path, I really think that there will be something for everybody in this show. So Dad, I want to welcome you onto the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you, Yatin.
I've been really excited to do this. Let's rewind the tape and go right into it. The earlier days in India. Dad, you did a lot of your education there. You did medical school there. But then you and Mom were making a big decision to move out west. You went to England, then you went to Canada. Can you just talk to us about those early days and tell us what motivated you to make that jump?
Sure, Yatin. I'm really excited to be on your show here. Of course, England was it was a wonderful experience for me as a physician, and I learned a lot. I met a lot of nice people. And but at the same time, I realized, to go further as a physician, not only as a physician on a personal level, improve, achieve a lot more. I think Canada was the best place. But, I must qualify. Coming to Canada started way earlier. I was in grade 6. You won't believe that.
Oh, really?
Yes. And what happened was, I was growing up in India. I had a beautiful childhood, and I was a very curious child. And always, not only into sports and friends, but I was reading a lot. And so much so that, it's very interesting that the caretaker of my junior school, I had moved to the middle school, grade 6. The caretaker of the junior school, he actually handed me the keys to the public library that was set up in our junior school. And for my summer vacation, he knew I was an avid reader. He said, "Here are the keys. You can come here anytime you want to. I trust you." So he used to give me the keys. But then I moved on to the middle school as well. And then I had access to other major library in the city. Then I was basically living there. So that reading triggered my interest, because I was not just reading, learning things about different countries and the world in the school, but after that, I will really dig in. And that was my curiosity. And I think that generated a lot of interest in the rest of the world. But then what happened was, you see, we all have met people in our lives during different junctures, and they've had a significant impact on our lives. And I'm mentioning this because this is how it all started. A new family moved into a neighborhood, and one of the siblings was older to me by 3-4 years. So he was in grade 9. So he taught me how to write letters. We were living in South Delhi, where all the embassies used to be, and he showed me how to write letters to embassies, and they will send you literature and books and things to read. And so that's how I learned. And then I started writing letters.
Wow.
And I remember getting those book posts, big book posts from Canadian Embassy, US. US was the major sponsor of these things. But I remember reading all those things. And I still remember that book that Canadian Embassy sent me with beautiful glazed paper, Canadian Rockies on the front page, with the VR rail going there, and the beautiful kids in their winter jackets. That just stayed with me. And this is a fact that it was in grade 6. I started dreaming about coming to Canada. And of course, I wanted to learn about all the other countries. My knowledge at that level was...
Yeah, I can imagine it was quite immense. Like somebody in our house. Dad, I feel like you have probably shared this story with me before. And if I forgot some details, I'm sorry. Maybe I wasn't fully present the first time you were sharing it. But that's a beautiful story. And so you came to Canada. I was born in England. Then you moved to Canada. Natasha, who's my younger sister, was born in Canada. And Dad, when you and Mom arrived in Canada, because you had left everything you knew behind, how did that motivate you and push you to be your best self? Because I can imagine that moving across to the other side of the world has a big impact. Can you talk about that?
Sure. Going back to my experience in England, that was excellent experience, came in very handy, very useful then I went to Newfoundland when I came to Canada. And that experience allowed me to work as a GP surgeon in Newfoundland in this remote setting where I was able to do different things. So I think that was my stepping stone into Canada. And from there on, I just grew and met a lot of wonderful people. When I look back at all the things I've achieved, all the things I have done, all the hobbies, and professionally how I've grown, they've been people in my life at different junctures, and they have guided me, they've helped me, and I'm sure we all have those people in our lives. If you think back at what you have achieved, how you met people, they've had quite an impact. So in Newfoundland, I have to say these things because I think to me, these things are very dear, and it also tells me, and hopefully others too, how important it is to make connection and meet people and have an open mind and being willing to learn from others. And I will never forget, I was doing my first ever C-section in Newfoundland. I had this elderly retired anesthetist from BC visiting Dr. Fraser, and I remember I was a little anxious, and I remember the first stroke of the knife. I was looking after, trying to take care of the bleeders, and he, in a fatherly tone, he just said, "Ashok, get the baby out and take care of the bleeders later on." I got the message, got the baby out, and I will never forget that. They stayed with me forever. And after that, I went on to do many C-sections, and perfectly.
I think that's really well said. Just to paint the picture for everybody, we were in a small town in northern Newfoundland called Bayvert, only several thousand people. And I remember on our street, we had a street that had mainly physicians who were from other parts of the world. So there was a strong sense of community there. Dad, let's fast forward to work, because when I would ask you about your work as a family doctor, and many people will know that I had decided very early in my life to follow in your footsteps because I saw you as a happy professional man and also a very happy family man. You were always there for us, so I'll let everybody know that. But then when I asked you about your work, Dad, you would often tell me that you felt like work didn't really feel like work. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that and how you managed to craft a career in family medicine that was enjoyable and sustainable for the long term?
Sure. When I first came to Kingston, I was at Queens for 1 year, and then I went to this adjoining neighborhood community called Napanee. So I went there as part of my residency training, and I just found that to be most suitable to what I actually want to do as my career as a physician, because it offered me a community hospital. I was able to work in the ER as well, and I was able to take care of my patients in the hospital setting. I was able to do intensive care. That was my nature, has always been my nature, that I wanted challenges and adventure, and I found that was offering me more satisfying medical practice. So I basically decided to drive from Kingston to Napanee every day, and met some amazing colleagues, and we had this camaraderie there. We used to enjoy working hard, and looking back, I probably worked too hard, but it was all good. So every day was so satisfying, so fulfilling for me. And whether it was I was on vacation, I had a lot of vacations too, or whether I was at work, whether I was on call, it was always because it gave me the satisfaction from every angle, as a physician, as a person, and I loved being there for my patients. I was doing palliative care, I was doing house calls, I was doing ER, I was doing all kinds of things. So it was basically very fulfilling for me. So every day seemed like the same thing, whether it was Friday night, I was off for the weekend, or Monday morning, as you noticed, you commented that I always felt the same, and I just enjoyed it. And I must say, I think even growing up as a child, I was always a very positive person,
Yeah, you always have been positive.
very resilient. And I think life is all about that. And I've always believed that, even in adversity, I found an opportunity. And I think it was just very positive. It helped me a great deal, no matter what I did, where I was.
I get the sense that you probably kept your career interesting because, as we're going to dive into, Dad, you took on new challenges for yourself along the way. I would say every 5 to 10 years, you were embarking on something new, and we're going to get into this shortly. Before we get into that, can we just talk about that one day that was a little bit jarring for us? I think I was in grade 2 or 3, and I walked out of the school. Mom was picking us up, and she had a very sad look on her face. And then she told me, she said, Yatin, today's not a good day. Your dad was in an accident. I remember I was 7 or 8 years old and my heart sank at the time. And I remember saying, is dad okay? She said, yes, he's okay, but it was quite a bad accident. We're very lucky. Can you talk about not as much that day, Dad, but just the impact that had on you? And did that day and that accident on the road in the wintertime, did that shape your outlook in any way?
I think it did to some extent, although over the following years, I learned a lot more that all those things have had an impact on my life. But certainly that accident did teach me a few things from driving point of view as well, what safe driving is, I've looked into safe cars and all those things. I thought I had a very safe car. But so I think from that point of view, I did teach me a few things, but also it also taught me how fragile life can be and how important it is to actually enjoy every moment and live in the moment and make the most of it. It did teach me that. And I think I was very lucky, as you said, all along I was able to spend enough time, good quality time with my family and friends. But that it reminded me how important that was to keep on doing and actually do more of that, for sure.
I think that's really well said. I think for people who have gone through a moment like that, you said it taught you about the fragility of life. And once we have that realization, then I think it does force us to be more present. And this is one of the things that I've been working really hard to do over the last several years. Dad, let's move on to your entrepreneurial ventures. You have always amazed me at how you have been willing to take on new challenges, take on calculated risks, and grow as a person. Is it safe to say that the first entrepreneurial venture you took on was opening up the urgent care center, the clinic in the mall? Because that's the one that jumps out to me first. Maybe talk to you about what motivated you to open that up and what did that whole experience teach you?
Sure. You see, because I was also doing ER and I was in touch with my colleagues in Kingston as well, and we'll often play golf and things. So I was learning that how crowded ERs were getting and how difficult it was becoming for patients to get into their family physicians. And I saw the need for me to be creative and create something where I could have other physicians come and work. And there were a lot of physicians in the area I knew during those CME sessions that they were looking at some kind of exciting work and some were retiring as well. So I said, this was going to help me create something because I had a vision, because I didn't want to just sit in the office and just write prescriptions or examine patients. I wanted to create this place where I could take the load off the ER as well. And also from business point of view, create something more exciting and more fulfilling from financial point of view for me as well. And also, I think I was the first one in the province to open an urgent care center where we were doing lacerations, we were doing nebulizer treatments, we were doing fractures, we had access to x-rays. Physicians in the area, they were not so sure what I was doing, but it was such a huge success. As you know, it became a very, very important community facility. And even the ER, they used to send patients to us as well. And they were so thankful. So it was a huge success. Professionally, it was very satisfying. And I took the challenge. I took the risk of doing all this. And I was very happy with the results. And honestly, I just enjoyed the process. I just enjoyed the journey, and the end result was beautiful. It also opened up other opportunities by freeing up some cash for me. And as you notice, I went on to do more things, got into some other dreams that I was always a dreamer, Yatin, and
I know you were. I want to get onto that last point a little bit more about how it freed up cash for you. And I want to say one thing. So I myself, I'm a hospital-based radiologist. And so when I generate an income, I am trading my time and energy for that income. But you were able to build something where it seems like you hit a point where your inputs were not necessarily tied to your outputs because you had built a system where other people could work. So can you just elaborate that a little bit more on what opening up that clinic did for you in terms of freeing up your time and allowing you to not always trade your own time for money? Because I think this is an important point.
Yes, of course. You see, as physicians, we are working hard. I must say, I worked very, very hard. But then it's you need to find a balance to what you're doing in your life, which is family and friends and hobbies and other interests as well. Otherwise, it can get out of control, and you lose track. What's important in life? As I said, it's the balance. But so this allowed me to have more time. Of course, from time to time, I may have to just jump in. Somebody is not showing up or is sick. I'll have to go in, take on that shift. But which was okay. But almost always, this urgent care center was run physicians. So all the income that came from the urgent care center, that was basically on top of what I was generating from my office, my hospital, my ER practices in Napanee.
So I believe after this, you started to get more interested in real estate. So you started to invest in land, and then some of that land was sold off to builders, and that generated another revenue stream for you. Dad, can you tell us a little bit about how your interest developed in this space and also the investment thesis behind why you thought this would be a good idea?
I won't recommend that kind of investment strategy to anyone. Having gone through that, I did two big developments in Kingston. But again, as I mentioned, you meet people in your life, they have an impact. So I had a real estate friend with me. So he said, "Oh, Shok," he made some recommendations. "Why don't you do this and you can develop this land?" And I thought it sounded very easy to me, but it didn't turn out to be that easy. But it's okay. I still enjoyed the process. Yeah, so I bought this piece of land and went through a development process and everything. They were dealing with bureaucrats and city guidelines. And so it is a lengthy process. It needs a lot of cash, and at the same time, end results are really, really good if you're patient. Patience is virtue in real estate. So I basically did this development. Took a good few years to see the results, and then I went to do one more development after that, and that was enough for me, because I think nowadays I understand it's become even more difficult to do those things.
So just to throw some more detail onto this process, you invested in land and then you took part in a development process where subdivisions were created there. And this was in the West End of Kingston.
Kingston, yeah.
Right. So what would you say you said it was a lengthy process, but tell us what made it difficult, and would you do something like this again, just for listeners?
I think it depends on what stage in our lives we are. It may still be worth doing, but my experience tells me it's normally done by people who are more experienced in these things. For me, it was the first ever thing, and people came up to me and say, "Oh, Shogo, what are you doing here?" But you will see, no matter what you do, try and do in life, especially something new or out of the box, there'll be a lot of people, they have their opinions, and some people, they may want to pull you down or discourage you. But you should never, if you got to believe in yourself, you got to stay focused, if you want to fulfill your dreams. So it can be a hard thing to do, but as long as you're enjoying everything, it all worked out okay. So when I look back, there was a lot of people involved. You got to have the best team of planners, engineers, and lawyers, and then you have to deal with the city. And so it's a lengthy process. I did not know how lengthy it was. And then you have to have the contractors to put those services in. So I had no idea. I was a physician, right? But I learned a lot. That's again, I think my being curious and always interested in learning new things and meeting people, I think that helped me a great deal.
Let's move to your third, final, and I would say biggest entrepreneurial venture. And that was creating a wonderful retirement residence in Amherstview called the Windsor. You poured so much of your time and sweat into this. This was start to finish, I want to say at least 10 years. But I will let you talk about the details. But maybe tell people what you did, Dad, and tell people why you did it and how you developed the conviction around this idea.
Yeah, I think it was early on in my practice. I used to go and see my patients in these retirement residencies, nursing homes, and I was always disappointed with the quality of their accommodations, quality of service, the food. And in my mind, every time I'll go there, I'll come back very upset. Then I started thinking about, well, I knew how these things should be done, uh, and to make it satisfactory and safe and enjoyable experience for these people residing there, because all these places, they were not designed properly. So it became my dream again. You got to have dreams, Yatin. So it was my dream to one day create a place, show people how things should be done. And money is not everything. It's all about making a place which is uh, conducive to safe living, because all these places, they were like mazes, of real hazards. Mobility, proper safe mobility was not possible in these places. So I wanted to show people how things should be designed, how things should be done. So I had this real estate friend again. He knew what I was thinking of. So one day he called me in my office. He said, "Ashok, there is this old nunnery. It's on sale. I thought of you. Will you be interested in having a look at it?" I finished my office in the evening, went and had a look.
Same day. You went the same day.
Same day, on my way home. Went there and I told Peter, I saw the potential there. Again, I did not know what I was getting into. I said, "Peter, I want this building." And there were a few acres around the building. "I want this property." Then he said, "Ashok, there are 3 other investors from Toronto. They want to demolish this building and they want to create a subdivision here. And they already made offers." I said, "Okay, anyway." So I said, no, I didn't give up. I said, "Okay, that's okay." So I picked up the phone. I had a plan. I went and I did a presentation to the senior nuns in the building. That place was so clean, Yakin. You
Really?
could drop food on the floor and eat. They just maintained that building so well. So I did the presentation. I still remember that day. It was in their dining room. Did this presentation, showed them my vision. And right there, they said, "Forget about these developers, investors from Toronto. Dr. Chera gets the building. That is it. Final."
Really? Okay. I didn't know this. I didn't know
Yes.
that this
Yeah.
happened behind the scenes. Okay.
And then I spent a lot of time and energy and money and hired the best architects in the city, and the designers. They fulfilled my vision. And once I got to the point where I was satisfied with what was being done, we put it into action and we started to build. And when the building was done, those nuns, they came for the opening. And I still remember they came and hugged me. They had tears in their eyes. They said, "Dr. Chera, you have done way more than what your presentation was." And they were just so thankful. And it was written up all over the city in the newspapers. And so then it went on and it became, and I wanted to deliver quality. It became, the reputation of this retirement residence was so good. I mean, we were known for our quality of food and care. But then I think after 5 years or so, I said, okay, I have so many other interests in life. I've done this, I've achieved this, I've created this. It's time to move on. And, in the meantime, as you know, I've had not just one or two hobbies. I've had many other hobbies. I wanted to spend more time on those things. And I said, I have grandchildren now. It's time to move on and enjoy.
Would you say, Dad, that building this retirement residence, the Windsor, was this the hardest thing you've done?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
it was. It was.
Okay. Now, when you were coming up with the idea for the retirement residence, can you shed some light on supply-demand dynamics for senior living in the area? Were you well equipped with the data to build the conviction to go all in on the project?
Yes, I was. I did a lot of research and I used the right people to do the research for me. And at the time, the fact was looking at the demographics in the country, in Ontario, in Kingston area, the need for retirement residences was going to double every 5 years. So, and that's how I was able to convince the banks, and they always look at those data and all those details before they approved, the loans and that you borrow all the money and do the project. So they were convinced with my presentation. So no, we did. Of course, it was a major project. So we had to do all the research before getting into the major task of building that.
From this project, what do you think, Dad, is the biggest lesson that you learned?
Well, I think biggest lesson, I think it was very fulfilling for me to basically fulfill my dream. I really enjoyed that. I think there were many lessons. One was it's easy to create these things, but to manage and run properly so that all your dreams are fulfilled, and which means for my dream was to deliver quality. That became a little difficult because of the manpower issues and hiring and firing, and that was the most stressful part.
I'm seeing a bit of a theme here. Your first venture, which was opening up the clinic, the urgent care center, and the Windsor, the retirement home, in a way, these projects directly tied to the experiences that you were accumulating in life on your journey. Whereas when you started to buy lots and take part in subdivision developments, that was quite a bit removed from the experience that you had gained in life. So to me, am I right in saying that the clinic and the Windsor were probably a little bit more fulfilling and rewarding for you and probably yielded better results over time?
And they did.
Yeah, and I think that's an important part to drive home because we all have a journey and we are all accumulating our own unique experiences along the way. But if we are going to dream and build something, I think that sometimes the best results are achieved when we tap into the experiences that we are accumulating along the way. Now, Dad, despite doing all of this, one thing I have observed about you and really come to appreciate is that you found a way to live a fairly balanced life. Now, there were moments where you had to go all in and work was probably consuming your life. But looking back, when I was 13 or 14, you introduced me to the game of golf, and you were my golf buddy. We would play 9 holes all the time. And then you also introduced me to travel. And I'd like to share a story with everyone. It was in 2010 when I was interviewing for my radiology residency. I went to the University of Calgary and they asked me a very simple question. They said, Yathin, what do you like to do outside of work, outside of medicine? And I tapped into all the things, Dad, that we did together and all the things that you introduced me to in life. I talked about golf, those early morning rounds, those sunset rounds. I talked about traveling, doing the Inca Trail with you, climbing Kilimanjaro with you. And then it really hit me hard when I left that interview. I remember I picked up my phone right away and I called you and I said, Dad, thank you for enriching my life in all these ways. Mm-hmm. But then what it really brings me back to is how you found a way to enjoy today, but also save up for tomorrow. And what I wanted to ask you was, how did you figure out this balanced approach so early? Because one thing I realized in myself as recently as a few years ago, and I see it with a lot of my colleagues, that we're often working really hard. And I know Seema and I were doing this. We were delaying our gratification for later. And then 2023, we changed everything. But yet you found a way to live a more balanced life earlier, living today and saving for tomorrow. How did you figure this out early in life?
You know, I can probably say a few different things on this because, as I mentioned earlier, you always meet people at different junctures and they have an impact. So when I look at my, I think to begin with, my interest, my curiosity, my knowledge about the rest of the world, it just got me into thinking about visiting these places, being in those places. So even in med school, I was traveling a fair bit in Himalayas and everything. But then I looking at my hobbies, for example, I have many hobbies. So I met some people. For example, I remember my patient. He was a retired army man and a veteran. And then he was a great golfer, and he used to win all the seniors championships in the area. So he took me to the range one day, and he said, his Frank was his name. He said, Dr. Shara, you're a natural. Right away, it takes me to this custom, the club maker, his old friend, and he got custom clubs done for me. And then he used to play with me, and so he got me into golfing. And I'm so thankful to him. So that was one thing. Then I met somebody, another patient of mine, he got me into birding. And I remember going to Costa Rica for 2 weeks birding, and I fell in love with birding. Not just birding, fell in love with being in the rainforest and this. I learned the merits of being with nature and forest bathing and hiking. And, you're walking 10 hours a day And I've done several trips, birding trips since then, and met some amazing people and fell in love with those things. And also, I learned so much from these people, And then I remember I had a patient, he was 72 in my office. And he comes in, he's looking for a prescription for Diamox. I said, "Oh, why do you need Diamox?" He said, "I'm going to be climbing Kilimanjaro." So, holy cow. I could not. I said that got me thinking. So there is so much more to life. So I got thinking, and in the next year I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro too. So you see, it just happens, and it will be happening to you as well. I'm sure it has happened to you a few times already. So the balance, I was very fortunate. My thinking, I'm so thankful for everything. It was always important to me, not just medicine I love medicine, of course, that was the main thing, but I always was able to do a few other things and these people helped me generate more interests and, more different hobbies. So this balance, it was very easy to achieve. And even when I retired, just before 64, I have not, I have enjoyed almost 45 years of medical practice, but I must say, I've had so many other interests. I'm just busy as busy as ever. I just took medicine out of the long list of hobbies, so to speak, and I replaced that with something else. So I've never looked back, and it's been really good. So I'm very thankful that I've had that balance.
I love that. I love that. I think you were having some wonderful conversations with the people in your life, including your patients, that inspired you to think outside the box.
Yes.
And just a few days ago, Dad, we were having a conversation on the phone. In fact, it was yesterday. You told me that you're loving retirement,
Yes.
and which is really wonderful to hear. But I think the reason you're loving it and you're not getting bored is because your identity is built around many things, not just medicine. And you've always been like that. And it's wonderful to hear that family medicine did shape your life in that way, because I can tell you, for me, as a radiologist who spends 90% of my time behind a monitor, sometimes it can be very easy to lose sight of the other things that enrich your life. But I encourage everybody to build their identity around multiple things, not just medicine. In my experience, it is the physicians who do that who end up living the most exciting, rewarding, and enriched lives. So something for us to all think about. Now, Dad, I recently shared a photograph of us in the holidays. We were busting open a bottle of red wine, the Pantocrator, which I dug out from your fridge upstairs. We did a bit of research on this wine, and we found out that the ideal drinking window was around now, and it was a delicious bottle. And then I shared that photo with my community, and then somebody mentioned in the post that, wow, your dad looks great. He's aging like fine red wine as well. And so let's just talk a little bit about your latest interest, which is living a healthy lifestyle, both through activity and through treating our body well, through eating well. Dad, what really motivated you to think about these topics so deeply? Because you've gained a lot of knowledge, you're doing really, really well. I'm really proud of you for it, and you're teaching a lot of us along the way. But what got you interested in this, part one? And then the second thing I'd love to know is, what are some of the most important things that you've learned that you might be willing to share with people?
Sure. I think uh, some of those good habits, I was always early morning person. So I think some time ago when you gave me the book 5 a.m. Club, and I read that and I really enjoyed that. And I felt really good, that because as you know, I've been an early morning person, and I agree with Robin Sharma's approach there. I think that's been the most productive time for me. So you see, when I was doing all these hikes in the rainforest or climbing mountains and things, I have enjoyed those things so much, and it does cross my mind. I've just turned 70, and how long will I be able to do this? So to me, those things are very, very important, and I've thought about that. And now that I'm a grandparent too, I want to enjoy my grandchildren the way I want. I want to be active with them. I want to be able to do hikes and things with them. So I've been thinking about these things and said, I want to keep on doing all these hikes, keep on doing all these travels. For example, next month, as you know, I'm doing this Camino Costa Rica, the 280
I
280
know.
kilometer hike next month. So I'm looking forward to that as well. So I want to keep on doing these things, but the only way to hopefully keep on doing these things is to stay fit, stay healthy. And one of the best memories I have was when I hiked Cinque Terre with my grandchildren. I will never forget that. So I want to
Hmm.
be able to do more of that. I want to be able to play with my grandchildren, and I want to be part of every active thing that they do as much as possible. So one way to do this is to stay healthy. It's now staying healthy is focusing on real well-being. I've been spending a lot of time reading up, and because well off is okay, things have been good and God has been kind, but I think focusing more on well-being. So my routine luckily has allowed me to do those things. Most of the things were already being done, which is my routine early morning and meditation and yoga and exercise and all those things. But I'm really looking into eating healthy. I've changed.
Yeah, that's been the big change, I think. Eating
Huge,
healthy.
huge
You've
change.
dramatically.
Yes. Dramatic changes. And I think I can tell you, I have, touch wood, I have never felt as good as I do now in my life. And I think I won't be exaggerating if I think I can climb Kilimanjaro now.
When you said that, I don't think I'm exaggerating. I've almost flinched a little bit because everyone, a little bit of an inside joke here. My dad has a bit of a tendency to exaggerate, as do I. I've been reminded in our house too. But Dad, you're looking great. I know you're feeling great. From a diet perspective, can you talk about 2 or 3 changes you have made that have gone a long, long way?
I think there's one thing I still need to work on, which is enough sleep.
Yeah,
And I
me
think
too.
I've made some changes recently,
Yeah.
which is I'm trying not to do any personal device stuff after 8 o'clock. I'm trying
Yeah.
not to do that.
I need to work on that. I need to do a better job too.
But I think I'm also trying, I think last couple of weeks I've been sleeping for at least 7 hours. I
Good.
I don't think I ever slept even 6 hours all my life, every night. And not that I feel sleep in the daytime. I never sleep in the daytime, although maybe a siesta will be a good idea. But definitely, I think between 7 to 8 hours of sleep is very important.
Okay.
I do doing the exercise is very, very important. But eating wise, and of course, meditation is
Hmm.
it's a huge help. But one should really do this, and I do this with no expectations. I think it just helps. Eating wise, as you know, I never drank alcohol. Maybe once in a while, social
Hmm.
settings, I will do that. So I basically more or less not been drinking. I had
Hmm.
zero sweets, I think, and I've lost about 30 pounds in the last 2 years. So it's my diet is basically mostly vegetarian and some seafood. As you know, I prefer not to eat out, and I'm very careful what I eat when I go out. And otherwise, it's basically vegetarian fruits and nuts and and seafood. This is what I do. These are the major changes for me, and then zero sweets.
Okay, so you essentially cut out the alcohol, apart from special occasions. You've really dramatically cut down on the sweets. You had a sweet tooth. I have a sweet tooth, and it's
Hmm.
something that I need to manage as well. You have gone big on a mainly vegetarian diet, but you do eat meats, including seafood. I don't think you eat much red meat anymore, right, Dad? Except for the occasional lamb curry over the holidays.
Only when I make it when you guys come.
I know.
Otherwise, I just don't eat. No.
Well, Dad, you talked about a lot of important things today. The things that stand out for me is to have dreams and make sure you work to fulfill those dreams. The other thing that really stands out for me is you worked hard to live a balanced life. And I think that that helped you to craft an identity that was centered on many things, not just medicine. And I think that's the reason why you're thriving in retirement. Is there anything you wanted to leave listeners with? Any advice at all? I'll leave it with you for the next couple minutes.
I think I've touched most of the important things already, but I think another important thing is we all have to have dreams. We all have to have this positive approach. We have to live in the moment. We got to get good sleep. Got to do all family and friends is very important. Health is should be number one for everybody, and I think that gratitude. This is something new for me. Every morning, I'm just so thankful for everything. It's whatever happens, it all happens for the best, and nothing bothers me these days. And I'm just thankful for everything. I think those things are very important. and trying to add a few more things to my life. I love to sing, love to dance, so those things are okay. I've been trying to learn a musical instrument. I haven't had much luck. I need to spend a little more time
Okay.
and
Dad,
hopefully
yeah.
volunteering a little bit. That's all.
I know that you are already helping out the Windsor in an advisory role, the
Yes.
home that you built. And I think that's a great way for you to continue giving in that space. Dad, I want to just thank you for joining me on the pod. As last year was your 70th year, that really pushed me to invite you onto the show, and I'm really glad I did. And I just want to thank you for teaching me everything that you did, especially around living a balanced life. That's probably the biggest thing that I have taken from you. And also, I have to say you've done a really good job at teaching all of us about what it really means to be a family man. Because I can tell everybody that when I was active as a kid at all my sporting events, there was one person who was always there. Dad, that was you. I remember those days when you got me into hockey when I was 7 years old, right? And you would love waking up those mornings and tying my skates. And those are moments that I will never forget because it showed me that you were there and that you wanted to be there. So I want to thank you for that.
That brought me so much joy. And these are you see, it's all about creating memories. So these
Exactly.
memories are there. It's going to stay with me forever. And it was
Absolutely.
pure joy.
Dad, thanks again for joining me, okay?
Thank you. Thanks very much for giving the opportunity.